She sat by the window of the cafe, hands trembling as she adjusted her faded dress for the 100th time. It wasn't new. In fact, it was stitched from a fabric she had bought years ago. Yet she wore it with hope, because tonight could be different. Tonight, she was meeting someone who had agreed to go on a blind date with her. Her name was Aisha, a young woman in her mid-20s who carried the weight of the world on her fragile shoulders. Life had not been kind to her. Orphaned early, working 2 jobs just to pay for her small rented room, and often skipping meals so she could afford her evening college classes, she knew struggle better than anyone. Still, deep inside her heart, she nurtured a dream, to one day live a life where she wouldn't have to choose between food and books, between dignity and survival. The cafe smelled of roasted coffee beans and freshly baked bread, a smell that made her stomach growl quietly. She hadn't eaten all day, saving every coin for this one evening. She wanted to appear normal, like everyone else, not like the poor girl who couldn't afford a meal. And then he walked in. Tall, confident, and wearing a simple white shirt with rolled-up sleeves, he looked like any ordinary young man. But what Aisha didn't know was that he was anything but ordinary. His name was Saad. To the world, he was a self-made millionaire, the CEO of a rising tech company, a man who could buy anything he wanted. But to himself, he was just someone who had once known what it felt like to have nothing. Their eyes met, and he smiled warmly, walking over to her table. Aisha's heart raced. She stood up nervously, nearly knocking over her chair, and greeted him. He noticed the nervousness, the way her hands shook, the way she avoided eye contact as if ashamed of something. The evening began with small talk. She spoke softly about her studies, her love for books, and her part-time jobs. She didn't mention her struggles in detail, but her words carried the weight of a life lived in hardship. Saad listened, not interrupting, just watching her with curiosity and empathy. He had been on many blind dates before, most were shallow, empty conversations filled with pretenses. But this girl, there was something real about her. The waiter came with the menu. Aisha glanced at it, her heart sinking. Every item seemed like a luxury beyond her reach. She pretended to look through the list, then quietly ordered the cheapest cup of tea. Saad, noticing her hesitation, ordered dinner for both of them. The plates arrived, steaming and rich. She hesitated again, pushing food around with her fork. She wanted to eat, God, she was starving, but she was terrified of the bill. What if she couldn't pay? She had only enough for that 1 cup of tea. Hours passed, and their conversation grew deeper. Saad found himself opening up about his childhood, how he too had once been poor, working late nights at a mechanic shop while studying during the day. How he had faced rejection after rejection before his company finally succeeded. He told her about the loneliness of wealth, the way people changed around him when they discovered who he was. Aisha's eyes widened with admiration. She didn't see him as a millionaire. She saw him as a human being who had fought his way through storms. But then came the moment she feared the most. The waiter placed the bill on the table. Her hands turned cold. Her face flushed red. She reached into her small purse, fumbling for the crumpled notes she had saved. She counted silently, enough for the tea, not a penny more. Tears welled up in her eyes as she whispered an apology, her voice breaking. She confessed that she couldn't afford the meal, that she hadn't expected it to cost so much, that she was sorry for wasting his time. She braced herself for humiliation, for disappointment. But Saad only smiled. He placed his hand gently over hers, steady and kind. "It's on me," he said softly. 3 words that shattered the walls she had built around herself. Those words weren't just about the bill. They were about something much deeper. They were about acceptance, compassion, and understanding. For the first time in years, she felt seen, not as the poor girl struggling to survive, but as someone worthy of care. She cried quietly, and he didn't judge her. Instead, he asked her about her dreams. She spoke about wanting to finish her education, about her desire to open a small library for children who couldn't afford books. Saad listened with admiration, realizing that this girl had a heart bigger than her circumstances. Over the next weeks, their blind date turned into friendship, and friendship slowly bloomed into love. Saad never flaunted his wealth. In fact, he kept his identity as a millionaire hidden at first, wanting her to love him for who he was, not what he had. And she did. But when she finally discovered who he really was, she didn't ask for riches. Instead, she asked him to use his influence to help others like her, students who had dreams but no means. Saad was moved. With her encouragement, he started a foundation that provided scholarships, food, and shelter for underprivileged students. Together, they turned pain into purpose, struggle into strength, and loneliness into love. And whenever someone asked Saad why he chose her, he always smiled and said, "Because she reminded me that money can buy comfort, but it can never buy authenticity." She was real when the whole world was pretending. Their story became an inspiration, not just about love, but about humanity, humility, and hope. A reminder that sometimes the smallest gestures, like saying, "It's on me," can change a life forever. Moral of the story: true wealth is not in money but in kindness, compassion, and the ability to see beyond someone's circumstances. A single act of generosity can spark a chain of hope that transforms lives.